Hello, trumpet players. I'm pleased to introduce to you one of our latest books. This is the Trumpet Chops Tyro. Trumpet Chops Tyro is the second book in our Trumpet Chops series. This is a book for students, trumpet students that are not quite absolute beginners. They are beginners. I still categorize these. I call this the second beginner level. Not quite intermediate students yet. These are students that have a range up to E, fourth space E, and that's written E for us, concert D. And they can play in key signatures up to 3 sharps and 3 flats. And at this level, we're looking at basically eighth notes being the smallest rhythmic value, and that kind of simplicity. We're going to go through some of these exercises in a second, but I want you to hear how simple everything is. Don't let the simplicity of it fool you. You're getting the full benefit of the routine. And in fact, I will go as far as to say that even when I do this routine, I still get the full benefit, even though my abilities are way, way above this level. I hope that makes sense, because it's not, the benefit is not always from how hard the exercises are. It's from the order of the exercises. Which order do you put the exercises in? And with a book like this, the order is already done for you. You don't have to figure that all out. All right. So, why would somebody want to practice Chops Tyro? And this is a very interesting question to answer, because normally students of this skill level don't do full-fledged routines. That's been my experience as a teacher. Maybe your experience varies, but that's what I've seen. And I think the reason for this is because most of the established routines that are out there, they tend to not be modified in any way to make it to where a beginner could actually use that material. Right? I mean, think about all the routines that you might have seen. I'm assuming I'm talking to a teacher here. All the routines you might have seen, they would have to be modified to make it work for a student that's, only been playing for about 6 months. That's typically my students get started in the Tyro level when they're about 6 months into it. The really talented students might get into it 3 months earlier. So we're looking at somebody that's not even finished with their first year of school yet. First year of trumpet lessons. So the main benefit of this is that the students are already getting a regular routine, something that they can practice just the same way that the pros practice, and in their own way, they're getting the benefits that the pros benefit from doing a regular routine. I think also one of the reasons why teachers don't suggest a routine more often for the younger ones is they just don't believe that the students would do it. I've also encountered that. But with my students, I haven't seen that as much. Yes, there are some students that I've taught that are resistant to doing a full routine in their practice session, but the majority of my students don't have a problem with the willpower, or whatever you want to call it, Next question. What is the Trumpet Chops series? Basically, the Trumpet Chops series is designed to replace my first successful book. Daily Routines is a single book of 7 different routines. And when I used that book for many, many years, then 20 years later, I came up with this book because the materials in the Daily Routines book, this is Chops Express, the materials in the Daily Routines book tend to be too long for the students that don't practice a lot, right? So I decided it's time to write another book. But in the process of putting everything, all the new ideas into this book, I realized that I needed to also put some of those improvements into the full routine. And that's where the Trumpet Chops book is coming from. Eventually, we'll put all of the Trumpet Chops book into one volume, but that'll be a pretty big book. I think that'll be like a 200-page book. For now, we are releasing them individually like this, which makes a lot more sense today than what used to make sense. Because with print on demand, there's no problem with you guys ordering this and getting this. You don't need the rest of the book. So that makes a lot of sense. The only people who really should buy the whole book are maybe teachers or really advanced players. The rest of you really should be buying the individual books. And so yeah, that's what the Chop series is books at each level. They all have basically the same routine. And we're going to go through one exercise of each section in a second here. Now, I already said about what the Tyro level is. Let's talk a little bit more about the specific benefits. When you do a routine, especially, this is especially true for the beginners. I get my beginners to start doing a routine immediately. Immediately, okay? When you do a routine, there are, besides the physical stuff, right? You get a better sound. Because the stuff that you're doing, like long tones and stuff like that, that's the whole point of doing a routine, is so that you spend the time that you need to do those things that give you those benefits. Okay, so you get a better sound, you build better endurance, you play more efficiently. On the technical side, you're approaching the different keys and all that stuff on a regular basis, so it's not a problem when you see that in a piece of music. Yes, and you know what? There's also the psychological benefits of sitting and doing. I'm talking about this as if I'm talking now to somebody who's maybe resistant to the idea that these younger students, and I mean young in terms of trumpet, should be doing a routine. All of the benefits that we would expect from a more advanced student for them to do a routine, it's there in the beginners too. All of it. And it's basically what you do a little bit of every day becomes part of who you are as a musician. So yeah, there are tremendous benefits to doing a routine like this, even if you are just a beginner. Now let me go through some of these. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Let me go through some of these. It starts with Lipbuzz. I'm just going to pick a random exercise out of each set. Okay? Okay, that's one of 5 Lipbuzz exercises. And I want to say here, there are some people out there that are opposed to Lipbuzz, but they're not very specific when they say that. What they're really opposed to is lots of Lipbuzz. I've always done Lipbuzz and never had any of the problems. I shouldn't say always. Always as a pro have done Lipbuzz. Never had any of the problems that people say you will have if you do Lipbuzz. And the reason is because, like in this case, you're just doing 5 exercises. The people who have those problems are spending 15, 20 minutes, maybe sometimes even an hour. So yes, we're not anti-Lipbuzz in this book. All right, so now the next exercise is the mouthpiece placement. And instead of doing that now, there's a video on the mouthpiece placement exercise. You can go see that. Now we'll do one mouthpiece buzz exercise. Okay, that's an example of one of the mouthpiece exercises. Now there are 7 long tone studies I'm going to do for you right now. Number 6. The nice thing about, and I don't do this in all of the books, it just came that way in this book, and I thought, you know what, that would be a great idea. Because I'm trying to cover, this book is unique because I'm trying to cover only certain keys. And so I figured out that we can do minor and then major and then minor and then major. And so I marked it that way so that the beginners can see and maybe absorb it kind of psychologically, you know, subconsciously. And so each one of these goes through major and minor so that we cover those different keys. Anyway, here's the long tone. This is one exercise. It's kind of long, but when I was writing it, I thought to myself, you know what? This level of student having a long tone, that's not a bad thing, right? So anyway, here we go. Like I said, that's a little unusual for my long tones. They aren't normally that long. The next set of exercise is tonalization studies. I won't go into that here because, well, okay, I'll just go ahead and play one. I do have videos and articles and stuff like that talking about what tonalization studies are, but just for this, we'll go ahead and do one exercise out of the tonalization studies. Notice that the exercise started on the tonic, went all the way up to the top note. So we've said that this book has a range up to E, So in the top note in this key being E flat is the top E flat. And then we went down to low G. So each one of the scales, that's what tonalization studies are, is scales. Each one of the scales covers your whole range. That's one of the features of the book, of the whole series. All right, so next exercise, we're going to do lip slurs. So here is number 2 out of 4 of the lip slurs. This is number 2. By the way, the younger students don't play it that fast. I don't want to waste your time, all right? Okay, that's lip slurs. Then we have articulation, and I'll do number 7 out of 9. All right, a little bit of a cracked note there at the top. Now we have articulation intervals. I'll do let's do number 4 out of, how many is there? Oh, 7. Number 4 out of 7. That's number 4 out of 7 from the articulation intervals. Then I have a articulation endurance etude that is supposed to be played to try to get the tongue to get tired. I understand that different people have different amounts of endurance when it comes to the tongue muscle. I do recommend that if it doesn't make you tired, do it again. And I also recommend that you try to do the whole thing in one breath. For me right now, this is no big deal. Okay, that's articulation endurance. Then we just have some double tongue and triple tongue to finish it off. Let me do number 3 out of 4 for the double tongue. Once again, the students don't play it this fast. I have all my students start double tongue and triple tongue from the beginning. So they're going to be going more like taka 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 tam, or even slower than that. Okay, one triple tongue exercise before we call it quits. Here we go. This is number 4 out of 4. Okay, so that's a sampling of the exercises that are in the book. That's the order that they're in. It's the order, as I said, that's most important. Now, I have had some customers who write to me and say, I like your lip slurs, I like this, I like that, but I don't use the routine. You know, there's like no rule against that, obviously. If you like the exercise in the book and you want to use them, you know, I don't think you're getting the full benefit when you do it that way, but So what, right? Different people want different things, from different products. And so I've been writing these books since the late 80s, basically. And people have been using the books piecemeal like that since the very beginning. So no, it does not upset me. Um, However, you get the full benefit only when you do the books, not necessarily in their entirety, okay? But when you understand the format of the routine, then you can start swapping stuff out and still keep. So I actually consider that a compliment. Let's say someone's using my routine structure. I remember calling up a student one time that had moved on and gone off to university and stuff like that. And I call him and say, "How are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm still doing your structure. I'm still doing your what we call the physical trumpet pyramid. But this set of exercises that I got from this, like what maybe articulation exercises, I'm doing this where the articulation is, and maybe the long tones, they're not doing the long tones, they're doing something their other teacher gave them, but they're doing it as part of that structure." I actually consider that a compliment. And yes, like I said, that's been going on since I started writing, decades now. So anyway, if you have any questions about this book, please feel free to ask. It's kind of awkward selling this book as an individual book because it's a little lower than what we would in terms of skill level. Most students at this skill level now, it has the potential to go to more, because that's the whole skill level pyramid. There's more people at the bottom than there are at the top. When you get to the top, there's very few. And so, like, as far as what we use in my lessons, this is one of the most common books we'll ever use, because that's where most people start off when they get in here. But it's kind of awkward to advertise it because students at this level aren't normally looking for a routine. And then the people who are more advanced will look at a routine like this and think, why would I waste my money? Now, there is a reason, now that I've said that, there is a reason why someone who's more advanced would want this book. Because when you have this book, you could have, and you can learn about this in my One Range book. I wrote a book about how to build a range without sacrificing your musical, uh, musical aspects of your trumpet playing. I call it One Range, the Trumpet Chops Strategy Guide. And in that book, I talk about the resting at the day level. And the way you rest at the day level is to do what I call range limiting. So even though you're not going to take a day off, if you limit the range in a way, so like, let's say you have a range up to high C, you want to practice today, but you want to give your chops a break. You can do this routine instead of the routine that you're normally doing. Limit your other practice to E in the staff. And, when I do this, and I've been doing this now for, since it's been over 30 years, probably about 35 years. I've been practicing this way now for 35 years. And when I do this, even still today, in fact, this book is out because I practice it. And when I do that, it feels to me like I'm supercharging my chops. Right? Imagine you can bench press 400 pounds. I know that's a lot. But then later, on one day, you still want to do your bench press, but you decide you're only going to do 200 now. 200 feels like a day off. And that's what this book does. If you're above this level, You can use this book to get a good warm-up, spend some good time on the horn. You don't want to, give your mind a day off, but you want to give your chops a day off. This is it. This is a great way to do it. And for that matter, any of the chops books will work that way as long as they're beneath your level. Right? So if you are playing up to high C, if your range is up to high C, then you could do the trumpet player level, which goes up to high G, the G above the staff. And you're going to get a little bit more substance than the other book. There is a video out there for the Trumpet Chops Player book. And you'll get more substance from the Player book than you will from the Tyro book. But once again, it's not going to make you as tired as playing the book that goes with that top level. Anyway, we are still working on 4 of the other books. The 4th book, I did them out of order because I'm doing them in the order that my students need them. Okay. I hope that doesn't offend people, but that's the way it goes, because the books are always for my students first, and then I sell them outside of my studio. So the first one we did was the high C one, the Trumpet Pro. That's this one. And then I wrote the Trumpet Player one, which goes up to G above the staff. Then I did the Trumpet Tyro one, is the one we're talking about now. The one I'm currently finishing up is the Trumpet Apprentice routine. And that's the one that goes between the player and the pro. All right. Anyway, I was saying, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks for hanging out with me and letting me talk to you about these books, especially this new one, the Tyro one. Already said that. This is turning out so. Anyway, I'm gonna have to edit that out. I said, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Other than that, God bless you. We'll see you on the next video.